So aloha, hey, it's our 2TT, and it's not really TTT this week, it's TTF, meaning 5 o'clock, not 3 o'clock. And I'm so glad you guys are all here with us today. So we have two realtors that I'm excited to introduce you guys to if you haven't met them already. Delania Branham, raise your hand. There you go. Delania is with eXp Realty, and she and I have been working together for quite some time. We've been actually friends for 10 years, and she is my amazing go-to person about anything I have to talk to you about. Like if you guys have seen our videos about condos, and also she's been in business for how long, Delania?
12 years now?
12 years.
Long time.
And then we've got Jana. Jana, raise your hand. Jana Mahoney, look at that left-hand corner up there. Is so Jana works with people up in the North Kona and South Kahala area, and she lives in Waikoloa Village, and that's actually where I met her when I used to live up there. But she also deals with the resort area of Waikoloa, and she probably knows a thing or two about Waimea and Kauai High as well. I think so. Yeah. Good. So we are jumping in here. We are going to be discussing at least what's happening in the housing markets in both those parts of West Hawaii. So we can start that with Delania. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of inventory and pricing and demand and what's going on?
We were just talking about this before everyone came on, and I am seeing more properties come on the market. I feel like we're starting to get a trickle in, like just in the last couple of weeks. But they're moving quickly. Another trend I'm seeing a lot, which is challenging as a buyer's agent, is properties are coming up and there's a maybe 4 or 5 day period where they're collecting all of the offers before the seller makes a decision. That doesn't really get you a chance to be the first one in and get your offer accepted right away. So you have to, they're going to look at every offer. So you've got to really come in strong when that happens, because generally it's one shot, and it's got to be your best offer. So that's a little frustrating, but it's happening. And but yeah, it's a little encouraging that we're starting to see houses, condos across the board. We're just starting to see a little bit more pop up.
Yeah. And then in terms of getting the offers, so they're not coming back and countering anybody. They pick one of
they do sometimes, but if sellers got 10 offers in front of them, generally there's going to be something that they're happy and they're going to move forward on. If they had a bunch of similar offers, they might go back and do highest and best. But usually when you have that many days, it's like, put in your highest and best, because you're going up against everybody.
Good input. And Jana, what are you seeing up in your area?
Exactly the same thing. A few more listings, because for a while there was nothing. I have a buyer who wanted a condo up in Waikoloa Village, and day after day there'd be zero. So I'm starting to see a few more, but as soon as they come on the market, the same thing that Delania said, they sell almost immediately. And the same thing, most realtors are giving people like maybe 5 days just to submit offers, and then they come in and look at the one. And of course, the cash is the one that everybody wants. They want the as is. They don't want you to ask for anything. Man, it's tough to be a buyer sometimes in this market, but it's happening. It's happening. Buyers are getting houses now.
Yeah.
In fact, you have to be ready to go. You have to have your pre-qual ready to go. Yeah. You have to have your proof of funds ready to go. That's really what it takes right now.
Right. So get this for both of you guys, because I know some of my buyers have been sitting with you for a long time. Like what's the average time frame you guys are sitting with some of these buyers? Is it taking months to be able to get your offer accepted?
It's funny. I've had 2 different experiences today. So I have buyers that we've been working together, months. They were here for 6 months, spent some time looking at the property. They've been back home for a few months, and we just keep, for a while it was just waiting for anything to come up. And lately it's like, let's check out this one, it's not right. Let's check out that one, it's not right. And then we're opening escrow today. Perfect house came up, they fell in love, we got accepted. So it was worth the wait for them. Conversely, I have buyers that just got into town Monday. We looked at 2 places the other day. We looked at a place today. They love it. They want to write an offer on it. Again, we have to wait several days to get acceptance. But, they're the first week they're here, they found a great property. So especially if you've got a really specific thing that you want, a lot of these buyers that are living here full time, they're not just buying any investment property. They want a house that they love and they want to live in. So sometimes you have to be patient. You just got to wait until it comes up.
Yeah. And then Jana, what do you see?
I think if you have a buyer who is ready to buy here right now, if they're willing to drop everything and go look at a house the day it comes on the market, they have a much better chance, because that's where I've had the success, when you have buyers who understand this market right now and realize that time is of the essence, and they don't have the luxury of going back to look at it 2 or 3 times, and they don't have the
Zoom meeting,
oh,
real estate. No?
they don't have the luxury also of doing something like a low ball, because people are actually offering more than list at this point. So it's a psychological thing to overcome, I think, for a lot of people who've not bought a house that way before.
Right. And so in terms of that, I know sometimes you guys don't know what it goes for until after it shows up in some MLS experience. What's it going over right now? What's the average it's going over in terms of 10,000, 20, 40?
So I think for me, it very much depends on, the price point of the house. I have seen some go for just slightly over, up to maybe 50,000 over. So it kind of depends on the house and the price point of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard. And people want that. They want that percentage that they have to hit. But it's, I pulled up comps on a property the other day, and just to see what sold in the last 3 months. And it was like at asking, 50,000 under, 200,000 over. It was just all over the place. So it's really hard to look at a property and go, that's going to sell for 10% over asking, because there's so many variables with desirability. If they get a bunch of financed offers, if it's cash, we still have people that come in and they're like, this is it, I want it, I'll pay, take all my money, and that kind of skews things. So it's really hard. You have to look at it property by property and just kind of, make a best guess at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas last year you were running about 97%.
Yeah. Oh, which is
so
basically under with that.
Yeah. So it's changed a lot in the last year.
Yeah. So you guys, you see some of those statistics. So if it was 97% of asking last year, what do you think in general it is right now? Do you guys know?
I find it challenging to put a specific number on it.
Okay. Because that tracks exactly how hot the market is. Is it 101%? Is it 105?
Yeah. It's over 100 for sure, I would think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But then you still, at the same time, I'll still see properties pop up that were on the market for 3 days and sold under asking. Not necessarily a lot, but a percentage under asking, sold quickly. Sometimes it's finance, so there's always outliers. Yeah.
Or it could be the appraisal.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because sometimes so Jana, why don't you, because some of these people are kind of new, tell them about what's happening with the appraisal gap. What does that mean, and what's the story with that?
So a lot of the times when these houses have gone up so quickly, the appraisers are using comps that are somewhat maybe outdated. And so I know of a realtor friend of mine in Waikoloa recently that had a comp, had a house that didn't appraise, and those people lost the house because they had to have a loan. So the very next week, they got another buyer that had cash, and they actually sold it for more than the first offer. So the appraiser cost the first guy, his house, because the second guy didn't need an appraiser, which is why, of course, the listing agent prefers to get a cash offer, obviously, because they don't have to worry about that. But it seems like not all the appraisers are considering some of the very recent sales because the prices popped up. And so that's kind of a problem. If you put enough of a cash down, then it's not as much of a problem. Or if you have an appraisal gap language in your purchase contract, then that's not a problem. But if you can't do that, it could cause buyers to lose a house.
Yeah. Well, and you've seen that. So, and then, Delania, when people are talking about the appraisal gap, have you dealt with that personally in your some of your homes that you've gotten people under contract, how far that gap will go? I mean, is there a point where you tell buyers, it's $100,000 appraisal gap, and to have that conversation with them about what's that going to mean in terms of the housing prices go down next year. Are they afraid? I mean, is that what's that for realtors to say you should do it, or you need to do what makes you happy, that lets you sleep at night? I mean, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so there's two kind of aspects there. Fortunately, my recent buyers have been cash, or they've been willing to put a large enough chunk down that we didn't have the concern about appraisal, because and a lot of listing agents are putting it right in the MLS that they want you to have, you know, specific wording saying that if it doesn't appraise, you can bring cash to the table, or they're not going to take the offer. So that's a challenge. But personally, I haven't had any hurdles with that. But what you're saying about, you know, buyers being nervous about what the market's going to do in the future, I mean, that's kind of anybody, whether they're financing or paying cash. I mean, everyone knows right now they're buying at a premium, and you know, that may not hold. It may hold for a year or two, and 5 years and 7 years, you might not have that same equity in your house, and that's kind of the risk you have to take. And you have to think long term. You know, what are your plans? Are you going to try to sell it in 2 years or 5 years, or is it your home that you're going to live in and you're going to build equity and you're not really concerned about turning it around? But it's just the reality of buying in this market. Of course, a lot of those same people have sold in this market, so it's such a lateral move that they're kind of like, you know, I'm selling off my equity in this house and I'm moving into this house. And if I don't have it forever, then, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's also important, Julie, to still do a really good CMA for buyers, so that they know, you know, what, like, yeah, you're paying a premium, but how much of a premium? I think a very good analysis of the area is still a good thing to give to a buyer, so that they know and feel comfortable with it.
Right. I think Eric is online. Eric Ziemelis, are you popping in here, buddy? Yeah, say hi. There he is. So Eric is quitting his full-time job tomorrow, everybody, and he will be a full-time on Monday. So, so Eric had a chance to actually help somebody look at a condo, and then that's what came up, was the fact that she was willing to say, okay, I want to put an offer on this. And Eric said, you know what, let's make sure that we give you at least 3 CMAs so that we know that we're covering our butts and we're telling you kind of where you should put your money. Right, Eric? I mean, that's a common way, I think, to make sure that
is correct.
You know what you're getting paid for, right? Are you freezing?
He's frozen.
Oh, Eric, you're frozen.
Oh, there he is.
Okay, Eric, there you go. So
I missed the question, though. I'm sorry. And I'm not Kaylin.
Was the fact that I know you're not Kaylin, but so when that woman wanted to make an offer on the condo, you wanted to make sure that you could follow it up with a couple of what's happening with other condos in the area. So
right. So, they're all evenly tracking. So it makes it's not just one sticking out saying you're paying more for this place than another place. Everybody is going up. So it's not as crucial as it is. And that's where showing the CMAs does really well.
Right. And so everyone on the call too, that, you know, one of the things that you can do to protect yourself and your assets is to ask for the CMA. Obviously, if you use my realtor referral partners, that they're smart enough and intelligent enough to make sure that happens for you either way. So, let's open it up to questions. I know that Chrissy, you're in the office. You're in the market right now for something. Do you have a question about what's happening with the market, or any questions about buying real estate at this point?
Yeah, sure. We are still really trying to beef up our down payment. So we're in a situation where we are going to be financing the house. And so I think one of my questions was answered by Jana just a little bit ago, because I've always been sort of confused why cash out offers are so much more marketable, I guess, you know, to sellers than a mortgage, because ultimately the outcome for the seller is the same thing. They get all of their money for the house, so it really does come down to whether an appraisal has to happen or not. That's what makes a cash offer so much more valuable. Is that true? Because otherwise, I'm not sure I understand why cash is so much more
valuable.
Yeah, I do think that's the main thing. But another thing is, it's just one less contingency that the seller has to deal with.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is with a lending offer, because conditional approvals do so close to closing that it's very likely that, not likely, but it's feasible that a deal can fall apart a week before closing. And it happens sometimes, you know, situations change, somebody goes and buys a car or whatever, and the loan can't close. And so you've gone 45 days you know, longer close than a cash deal. So you've gone 45, 60 days. And then, so it's a risk. It's definitely a risk for a seller.
So in our case, we're pre-qualified. We'll be pre-approved as soon as, you know, we've finalized our down payment savings. And so we're probably looking more in like the December, January timeframe as to when we realistically be in the market for, you know, for putting in an offer. But we've been sort of guided to go with a second home mortgage. So in our case, we live in Anchorage, Alaska. We have a home up here. We plan to keep it for a while as we transition into the Kona area. And then this will become a rental to help supplement income, or at least that's the grand, you know, of how this could work. So, but we'll be financing it as a second home mortgage. So I'm listening to the comments about, you know, competitiveness of an offer. And I'm wondering, are there tips, knowing that it's going to be a financed property, you know, how to make an offer kind of rise to the top when it's not a cash offer? Is there anything advice wise anybody would have to share on that?
Jana, do you want to jump in first?
So I think what you can try to do is make it as easy as possible for the seller. So do they want to take furniture or do they want to leave it? You know, an as-is offer, if you still have the right to go in the J1 inspection period and do an inspection, and you can still change your mind in that period, but an as-is basically says that you're not going to ask them to fix anything.
Sure.
You know, if it's a condo, you don't need a survey or staking. If it's a house and maybe they've got some stakes that you could see before, that would save the seller some money. So just anything you could do to make it easier for them. I've even had, recently I had an offer where they didn't even ask for cleaning, because a deep clean, a professional clean is part of the Hawaii contract. When you do a purchase contract, you could even waive that, like anything you could do to make it easy.
Okay, that's good advice.
Yeah, I would echo the same thing she said. Just, you know, tell them a clean offer. But, you know, as simple, as easy to accept, the less stuff you're bugging the seller about, the better. So, you know, you put as much down as you can, and then you kind of sweeten the deal, you know, in those little ways.
Okay. Also, one thing I've heard you guys talk about is sometimes the seller can't get to where they want to go as fast as they thought. So doing a longer escrow period or giving them free rent back is another one of those opportunities for like a little sweetening the deal. Right, guys? Is that kind of what I'm hearing too?
Yeah, I've done a couple of sale leasebacks lately where people were building their house and it wasn't quite ready yet, but the people wanted to lock in the sale. And so that's a good way to consider it if you're willing to let them. And if you're in Anchorage and this is your second house, then that's not going to affect your homestead exemption anyway, right? So
yeah, I mean, that's kind of the nice thing in our situation is that once we have our down payment finalized, we aren't necessarily really on a specific time frame, kind of when the property comes up and we can get into it, great. But you know, we're not in a situation where we're selling our house and we have to be out by a certain time or anything like that. We're planning to take, you know, kind of a 2-year time frame to transition fully for full time, you know, on the island anyway, just because of jobs. So we do have the luxury of having enough time, you know, to do this. But that said, you know, there are a couple places and a couple neighborhoods that I really love, and I don't see homes coming open, you know, in those places too often. So we do know that once the down payment's there, we got to be ready to jump. And I'm, you know, aware of all those things. I am curious, you know, I'm receiving the real estate listings every day, and Eric, I really appreciate that. Thank you. There are some properties that seem to come online multiple times or have been around or seem to have been around for a bit. And so I'm hearing that, you know, most properties are still selling very, very quickly, you know, in a matter of days. So I'm curious, is that usually kind of a sign that something is wrong, you know, with a property like that? If you see it come back, or if it's just been around for a couple of weeks to a couple months, is that usually a bad sign?
Yeah, if you're seeing it go off and on the market a bunch, you know, either it's a buyer issue, which we're not seeing a lot of buyer issues. Financing is pretty solid these days. So it could be inspections, it's falling out in inspection, or if it's sitting on the market for a while and it's not selling in this market at this time, then yeah, you kind of wonder what's wrong, you know, what's going on with the neighbors, or, you know, what's happening inside that you don't see in the pictures.
Okay.
We were showing a woman, it's a client from Eric's, and she was asking the same question. And we did some research, and basically it was just because it was a condo-tel, and every time someone went in there to get financing, they couldn't get the financing because it wasn't a normal condo. You basically had to come in cash, and it had fallen out of escrow twice. And then interesting too is that we found out that it had fallen out of escrow once, and then they raised the price of the condo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then people look at that and go, wait a minute, how'd you go from $350 to $399 after you actually lost the deal? So yeah, there's usually a story. And two, Kristine, one thing too is that you can always ask a realtor to ask the listing agent what the heck's going on. And usually the listing agent seems to like be pretty forthright in terms of what's going on. So.
And if you know it's a condo-tel, you can call the lender ahead of time and say, do you lend on condo-tels before you even get started with that process? Because you might need to talk to a different lender that does do.
Not everybody does it.
Right.
Yeah.
In our case, that's, I mean, we're looking for a single family home. You might have seen part of my 80-pound yellow lab earlier. You know, we've got a dog, so we're going to be, you know, looking for a home that we can, so we can, you know, have our dog. But as a second home mortgage, from what I'm understanding, you can't rent that anyway. That violates the stipulation of your mortgage. So, so condo-tel wouldn't really be. No, that's not your gig. Yeah. Yep. But we figure since we're recording this, other people might jump in and they might say, okay, what's the story here? So, sure. So in terms of what you're looking for too, is if you had to jump in on something, does that make you feel a little nervous sometimes though, that you know you have to move fast, but then you're thinking, I'm not even here. I'm in Alaska. I mean, are you feeling like that? A little bit. It kind of brings me to sort of, I think, my final question. You know, I know last year and watching some of these, you know, conferences, you know, people are talking about and have, you know, bought their places sort of sight unseen, you know, because they're not, you know, not in Kona, you know, right now. I mean, is that happening as frequently now, like people in that situation, or are more people on island actually like able to see the house for themselves before, you know, they put in an offer? It sounds like with as fast paced as it is, if we found something in one of the neighborhoods we are really hoping for, we kind of are going to have to do the sight unseen thing. And I'm curious what that looks like across the board right now, what people are doing.
A lot of sight unseens have been sold this year. And typically, you know, you just walk through with your iPhone and do a FaceTime showing. So yeah, that's happened quite a lot lately.
It seems like every time I'm at a property showing it, there's like other agents there doing the same thing. Everyone's got their phone and they're talking and they're showing everything. And then usually what we try to do is, if that's the situation, is have them fly over during the inspection period so they have the opportunity to see it in person and have that kind of window to yay or nay. But I would say it's rare to see clients at a showing. So
okay. And another thing that we want to talk about today is and again, it's speculation, but with Ironman being canceled and with the COVID count going up, there might be some travel restrictions coming into play here. And and again, I know that we're not a bunch of speculators here, but I'm wondering, and I'm gonna ask the girls, do you think that might put a cap a little bit maybe on some of the buyers that were thinking about coming into the island to buy housing? Because some buyers are flat out refusing to not be able to be here and look at houses and make it easy for themselves. They might pull out a little bit and wait until the COVID thing experience kind of maybe like diminishes. Maybe that could be an opportunity for buyers not to have to compete so aggressively with other buyers in the market. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can think off the top of my head of several clients that are planning to come in the next few months because they don't want to buy sight unseen. And if the situation changes, then they will probably just continue to wait. And other people that are waiting for that purpose. And then there's a handful that are willing to do sight unseen completely, even if they can't travel here. So I would say, yeah, maybe a 60, 40, 50, 50, somewhere around there split of people that are still going to pull the trigger. But I think there's going to be, you know, it's kind of how it was last year, you know, when things were locked down then, you know, there's kind of a mix of people that will pull the trigger and people that are just going to sit it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
The remote online notarization expired. So that's going to make it a little bit trickier to get people to close when they're not in the United States. Because now they're going to have to go to an embassy, and they had like this temporary thing that just expired. So it might make a little bit of a difference, but not a lot.
So you're saying with everyone kind of already doing the FaceTimes and everything else, it's like, you know, they're just, yeah, it's okay.
Well, I think Delania is right. I think that, you know, a lot of sight unseen offers are made, and then you have that J1 inspection period to fly in during that point and actually see it in person. And I think that's what I've seen happen too.
Yeah. And so how many times have you seen people fly in to see the inspections and then say, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be at all, and then quit?
Never.
Wow.
No, but they're reassured. It is nice when they can see it in person and have that reassurance and love it in person. But yeah, I haven't had anybody that didn't get a really good, I mean, the property I was at earlier this week, you know, we spent 2 hours on the phone, really going over the details. So it's about as close as you can get without being there. So hopefully they're getting a realistic feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, just, I know, Christy, you might have to do this at some point, but while we have this people together, if you are trying to get a really good feeling for a house while you're being shown it on a video screen, what's an important thing to make sure your realtor is showing you when you're looking at a house in that department? I mean, is this the time to like start looking for cracks in the walls? Or, I mean, you know, when you said 2 hours, I mean, you know, Eric and I walked through and went like this: here's a room, here's a bathroom, here's this, here's that. She wasn't on the edge of buying it. She was just looking at it. But seriously, 2 hours, you go through every single thing in the house with a phone?
I mean, it was a larger home, but I mean, yeah, I don't want them to put pen to paper unless they really have seen the things that I feel like might be a concern or an issue, or the highs and the lows, and as close as it can get to them being there. So, you know, I had my tape measure out and we were, you know, doing a thorough inspection of the house. So yeah. I mean, it's important because that might be the only time they see the property. If something happens and they can't make it over, we don't want any surprises. So,
and I would say
that
they're
interested.
Regard in the neighborhood too. You want to see like what the neighborhood looks like. What are the houses next door? What's across the street? What's, you know.
Yeah. And Jana, haven't you done that sometimes with people, like almost like virtual neighborhood tours, and you drive around with people to show them kind of what how far it is to the grocery store, or like what's happening in the neighborhood? And yeah, I
think that's important for people to see what's around the house too. It's not just inside the house. What does the yard look like? How close are you to a road? Do you hear road noise?
Mm-hmm.
And Google Street View is good too.
Yeah, I was just going to say Google Maps and satellite view. And even just driving along Google Streets and trying to see, you know, the 360 is hugely helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other questions from the gallery up there? I was trying to keep this to about half an hour or so. Okay. So I'm glad that we got a chance to talk to you guys, because we got some good information for people who are looking to buy houses soon. So just so you guys know, we're going to be doing the market update the first week in September. So you guys get a chance to see kind of what's happening with the market, but we will let you guys know if, you know, if all of a sudden inventory just dumps on the market and the prices drop by 50%, you'll be the first to know.
We'll all be buying houses.
I'll be buying houses. But okay, so thank you to Delania and Jana for throwing, you know, your expertise into the mix, and welcome to Eric Ziemelis, who will now be part of the gallery in terms of advice. So then, you guys, thanks for joining us, and I'll get this up, turn it into a recording. I'll put it up on YouTube and put it back into the group so people can see it. And you guys, thank you again. We appreciate, you know, everyone lending their expertise, and thanks for bringing the questions in. And Christy, good luck on finding that house. And Jay, knowing that you still rock the free world, making the decision to buy a condo when you did, because you already made $50,000 in equity. So,
probably.
You're a real estate genius.
Yeah, you got it at the right time. So, okay, you guys, have a great night.
Thanks.
Okay. Aloha.
Thanks.